In this video, I'll be sharing with you a continuation of our previous tutorial on how to cut and sew this smoky dress with a gathered flay or gathered layer. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. So if you haven't seen our previous tutorial, please go ahead to check on the previous tutorial on our channel, or I'm going to leave the link at the description box. So to start, we are going to start with the upper part of this dress, which has the smoky part. Now, the first thing you want to do is to go ahead to fold the upper part with 1/2 inch. That is, you fold it with half and half. You're also going to fold the front and also going to fold the back. Remember, we cut out 2 pieces for the upper part of the smoky part of this dress. Now you're going to fold the upper part just like I said. Then after folding it, after this you're going to sew. You need your smoky thread, which you're going to pass underneath under your reel. The thread under your reel is your smoky thread, while you use a normal thread for the upper part of your dress, right? And you're going to sew on the right side of this dress, unlike where you'll be sewing on the wrong side. But first you're going to start marking 1/2 inch. Now you're going to mark this 1/2 inch all the way round your dress for both the front and the back. Now this is the stressful part of this dress, because you have to follow it accordingly so that your lines will look same, or your line will not be looking too scattered. So you're going to mark 0.5 inches. Now if you feel the 0.5 inches will be too stressful for you to sew, you can use 0.7 inches, but do not exceed more than 0.7. If not, it will be too wide. Now I'm going to continue marking this all the way to the end. Now when you mark, you're going to place your ruler and you're going to connect. So you're going to mark for both the front and back part of this dress. Now that part is going to take time for you to do. After doing that, you're now going to start sewing. Now you're going to follow those lines that you marked. So just like I said, you need a smoky thread, which you'll be adding or putting at the lower part of your machine, which is the real side, and then use your normal thread on the upper part. So this thread, you can get it from 150 to 250 in the market. It totally depends on the vendor that you're using, like the person that you're buying the thread from. So I'm now going to go ahead to follow those lines, and I'm going to stitch this all the way to the end of the line. So I'm going to continue stitching this till I finish stitching the front and also the back of this dress. Now this is the stressful part of this dress, because you have to do a lot of sewing and you're going to follow it line by line. So after I'm done sewing, this is what I have, right? I'm just going to go ahead to place it on each other this way, and I'll be stitching it with 1/2 inch or 1 inch. Now the next step I'll take is to start joining the layers of my flay together. Remember, when I was cutting this, I cut mine into several pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead to start joining my pieces back. So after joining it, I'm going to fold the lower part of the pieces with 1/2 inch. That is, I'll fold it with half and half, and I'll go ahead to stitch. So I'll go ahead to fold all the layers and get it ready before we continue our tutorial. So if I keep folding this, it will make the video a bit longer. So I'll go ahead to fold the rest offline, and I'll show you the final results. So for the neckline, the strap, what I cut out is 4 inches by 25. Now I'll just go ahead to fold it this way, then fold with half on the other side, and then I'll fold it in this way. Now I'll go ahead and I'll sew this, start top stitching on the machine, and I'll be stitching the both of the straps that I'll be using for the neck piece, and I'll attach that much later to the dress. So after I'm done attaching that, now I also went ahead to fold out the lining, the mouth of my lining, while I was also folding the other pieces of my dress. So now the next step you want to take is to fold your lining into two, and you want to get the middle part, the middle part, because you're going to go ahead to notch it. Now on that notched part, you're going to get the first layer of your flay or gathers. Now you're also going to find the midpoint, which you're going to notch. You're also going to notch it, and you're going to place the notch middle part of your first layer on that first layer of the pleats, right? Now you're going to go ahead to place, and you're going to start pleating from the center. So you pleat from the middle to the end, and also pleat from the middle to the other side of the fabric. So this is another part of this dress that will take a lot of time, but you have to be patient. You're going to sew and pleat to the end, and after that you're also going to repeat this at the other side of your fabric. So I'm going to continue pleating this until I get to the end. Now when I get to the end, I'm not going to top stitch to the end. What I will do is I'm going to go ahead to leave enough ankara, that is double of the size of the remaining lining. So you're just going to see what I'm going to do at the end. So when I stitch and get to almost to the end, I'm going to leave. You see, I'm leaving like 1 inch, and I'm leaving more space for ankara. Now this is because when I'm joining it, I'll close up that 1 inch, and I'll have to pleat the ankara on top of the joining to cover that part. Now what I will now do is I'll turn to the other side. So I'll start sewing from this end. I'll leave about 1 inch and leave about 3 to 4 inches of ankara, and then I'll start stitching. If you notice, I am not stitching the ankara to the end, and I'm leaving more ankara than the lining. This is because we are going to make ruffles or pleats to cover that part. Now I'm going to go ahead to stitch this all the way to the center of the first layer of this ankara, that is to that notched part. So after I'm done stitching, this is what I have. Now we'll start sewing the second layer of ankara. Now if you joined us in our sewing video, you notice that we already marked these lines when we were actually measuring or taking the distance to cut out our ankara dress. Now I'll start attaching this ankara on the second line. So when I was attaching this ankara to the lining, I made a mistake, which I was supposed to turn the mouth of the ankara facing inwards, so that when I weave out this ankara, you will not be seeing the joining at the top. So when I was done sewing that was when I realized I made this mistake. But since I'm the one putting on the dress, all I'll do is to weave it out. So in the third layer, where we'll be joining the ankara to the lining, I'm going to be showing you how to stitch this. You should not stitch the ankara this way, like the mouth, the rough edges facing the right side of the fabric. It should face inside the other way around. So I'll just go ahead and stitch this to the end. And also remember, at the end of your ankara, it should not meet the lining, just the same way we did for the front part, right? So this is me, I'm trying to explain that I mistakenly joined this. It's supposed to like come from the under part. So you will see what I mean when I'm attaching the third layer. You see how I'm attaching the third layer in a way that the ½ inch will be underneath and not on top, so that when I weave this part now, it will be at the inside parts in between the lining and the ankara, and not on top. So I'm already done joining before I realized that. So losing this might cause tearing on the lining, because I used a very light weight lining to do this. So I just had to continue, and since I was the one putting on the dress, I just had to like top stitch on it, and I will weave it out much later. So on the third line that we marked, so remember all these lines was marked when we were actually cutting out the dress. So I'll just place and I'll start top stitching on that line. and I'll stitch it to the end. So remember also how we stitched the ankara at the ending part, in such a way that the lining will be separate and the ankara will be separate. So now we are trying to like join our ankara together and also join the lining. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the lining starting from the waistline of this dress. I don't know if you understand what I'm doing. Place the lining this way and then tuck in the ankara, and when you're doing this, make sure that you're stitching on the wrong side of the fabric, right? So make sure that the waistline of the lining is meeting on both sides. So push in all the ankara inside, right? Then you're now going to start stitching. Now I'm going to stitch this all the way to the end this way. Are you seeing how I'm pushing in the ankara? And I'll just go ahead to stitch this all the way down. After I'm done stitching, I'll go ahead and turn this to the right side now. After turning to the right side, you find out that all the ankara are now on top and the lining has been stitched in. Now place the mouth of your two ankara together, that is the first layer, starting from the lower part. Go ahead to join them together. Now I'm going to stitch this with 1/2 inch. After I'm done stitching, I'm going to go ahead to stitch up the next one. So now I've stitched up the first layer, the second layer, and this is the last layer. What I'm going to do now is to go ahead to place it, and I'm going to stitch it up with 1/2 inch. Now after stitching this up together, I'll now have to top stitch it on top of the lining. Like after you're done top stitching, what you'll be having is something like this. You now have like an opening on top of the lining, which is the ankara on top of the lining. What you now do is you're now going to pleat the remaining part of the ankara on top of the lining. That way the joining on the lining will now be inside the wrong side of the lining. Now you're top stitching this ankara on the right side of the dress. After stitching the first one, I'll go ahead to stitch the second layer, and I'll also go ahead to stitch the third layer, like to top stitch it on it. So after top stitching, I'll now go ahead to show you the final look on the dress. So now I'm done top stitching and I have joined this, right? So this is my skirt. This is what it's looking like. So if you notice, it will be looking big. So from the center of this dress now, like if I hold it this way, I'll fold it again. So I'm trying to find like the middle, which you're going to place at the middle of the skirt, that part we notched. Now go ahead also to find the middle of the back skirt, right? Hold your skirt this way. Now you now find the middle, now notch it. Now take the middle of one of the back. I don't know if you understand what I'm doing. I'll now take this middle of this side. This is the middle of the front facing the middle of the front skirt is facing the middle of the upper part. Now the middle of the back skirt should be facing the middle of the back upper part. Now to get the sides, because there's no joining on the side part of this skirt, you're also going to drag it open this way and also take the side that has joining on the upper part of the top and now place on the side of this skirt. Now you pin it down. You now go ahead to take the side of the other part of this dress and pin to this side, which is the side of the skirt this way, and you're going to pin it down. Now after you're done pinning it down, you're going to turn this to the wrong side. Now what you do is to attach this to your skirt. Now you notice that we didn't use the original length of the waistline, so what you do is to drag the stretchy part to meet up with the lower part of the skirt. So when you're dragging it and it's not meeting, you can easily pleat some parts of it so that it's going to meet up. Now this is my strap. After sewing, I'll just attach it at the top. Let's go ahead and top stitch it, and after sewing, this is the final look of this dress. If you find this tutorial very helpful, please kindly hit on the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.